got a tape of what I got done with the thingy-bob. You get a copy of it.
Okay.
She's got it going.
The interview recorded on the 14th of January 1996 by Roslyn, Sargent and Jean Mitchell. We're interviewing Alison Reid, who's 90. She was born on the 5th of June 1905 and has had a very interesting life. Alison, would you like to tell us about your early life and especially your interest in animals and how it evolved and how you got involved with
I
the
had
zoo?
the usual childhood with cats and rabbits and puppies and things like that. My father used to breed English setters and those sort of things, so I sort of was brought up with animals. And he found a stray cat that had been abandoned in the loft with kittens, and so I don't know what happened to the mother, but he gave us the two of them. There was Saucer Eyes and Sneaky, and we brought those up, kept them inside a big bird cage until they were old enough.
And how did you get involved with the zoo?
Well, I won a scholarship to go on Saturday mornings to the technical school for drawing and painting, and apparently in the exam I came top. In the final exam I didn't. I came second top because that particular day I had the flu and felt very sick. Well, Mr. Duchesne wanted to make me an art teacher straight off because apparently he thought I was very good. So when I went to high school, my mother mentioned to Mr. Mitchell that he wanted me as an art teacher, and Mr. Mitchell was quite rude, and Mother said, well, ring up Mr. Duchesne and speak yourself. And he said, as I heard him say, I don't care if she's got exceptional ability, she's got to matriculate. And in those days, you had to pass in maths. And so I get an 80 or 90% on other subjects. I would get very low, 12 and 20% for maths. And I have heard from other art teachers that they are hopeless at maths. It's something that doesn't go together.
Yeah.
So, but in my day, I was thrown out on the scrap heap. So I came home, and by that time the zoo was going. Mrs. Roberts had started it, had died, and had bequeathed it to the city council. And so Father started, because see, her place would go to something else. So he started building the cages on the domain. And there was one thing he said, that you must always face the east. And people since then have talked to me about putting one on down at Taroon and all that, but the sea breezes come in and sea breezes kill half the animals because African animals are not used to sea breezes.
No.
So he had this one on the domain, which apparently was so good that when the Sydney Zoo director was having a very serious operation, the trustees came over and wanted to have my father take over Taronga Park if anything happened to Mr. LeSwift. And my father said no way, because it's built in the wrong positions. Sea breezes came in and they had a very high death rate over there. So then he was offered a job in Russia, and he wasn't going to go to Russia either. But anyway, we lived there quite happily, and I used to help him rear the pheasants and the partridges or quail or anything like that. And of course when the lions cubs came along and the leopard, Mike, they, being in an unnatural situation, started treating them as playthings, carry them around and drop them, and just like a cat with a mouse. So Father would bring them up to me, and then that was my job to rear them. So
even the leopard?
Oh, the leopard, yes. He was only a day old when I got him.
Oh.
So he was actually born in captivity, was he?
He was born in captivity. Oh yes, he was one of his mother's playthings.
Oh right.
So anyway, I had to do a bit of research on it, because you always hear people say about kittens and puppies that gave them milk and water, which is practically killing the poor animals, because you just look at the size of a cow, and what does it eat? It eats grass. So its milk's very thin and watery. And a dog is a little animal that has meat and very highly concentrated food, so its milk's very rich. And the difference between a calf and a carnivorous animal is that, and us, is we digest our food in our bowels, whereas the carnivorous animal digests it in its stomach. It's got to form a sperm in the stomach. If it goes in the bowels, it's just wasted. And the funny thing, a friend of mine's grandson had a son, and she told me how he was feeding it on wheat bix and milk and water, and I said, you shouldn't give it milk and water. Oh no, the woman that breeds them, she knows all about it because she breeds dogs. That was something in her. She knew all about it. I will admit the puppy said this. Anyway, that is the secret of rearing the ewe. We had cow's milk, and I would thicken it up with either evaporated milk and cod liver oil.
All right.
And there was a German warship came in, and in South Africa they'd given it a poor little lion cub, and the poor little brute was so, in just a little while they'd had it on the ship, it couldn't walk. So they brought it out to us, and we fed it up on gallons of milk and cod liver oil, and within a week it was running about quite healthy again. So a lot is knowing how to feed them. And I know one of the lion got constipated, and we sent for Dr. Sprint, and he was highly amused. He said it's the first time he'd been doctored to a lion cub. So we had to give it an enema, and that fixed it. Over at the original Beaumaris Zoo, we used to go, my father used to take me there. But the only funny part about it is the only animal that I can remember there was a Tasmanian tiger.
All right, yes.
And it's quite clear in my mind, I think my father was interested in it. So we had them brought in, and where they got them from was up in the Florentine Valley, and during the Depression coming on, the men used to go up there trapping for kangaroos.
Yes.
Well, the tigers used to take their booty. So what the fellas did, this is helping them taking their numbers down, after they managed to get a good skin, they would poison the carcass with strychnine and leave it for the tigers.
Oh.
And tigers that were brought in to us had been either caught round the neck or round the foot. And so they brought them in, and I think they got £10 or $20 for them. Well, the last tiger that came in came from up Tiana way, we heard, and it was to be sick. It had this disease, and it went through the tigers like wildfire.
All right.
And the father's theory was that it was distemper from the dogs.
Yes.
It was like the distemper wiped out the dogs in Africa. So Professor, I've forgotten his name now, he argued with me, and he said no, it wasn't. It was a disease that the potoroos suffered from, because you see the tiger's got the same characteristics of the kangaroo. It's got the same thick tail.
Yes.
And it sits down on its haunches here. And it's got a pad up there like a kangaroo.
Yep.
So that's what he, I'm sure, Professor Guyler, I'm sure that's what he framed his idea on. Well, my argument is that as my father had reared dogs and had dogs die with distemper, he knew a little bit of the symptoms.
Yes.
And if it was a kangaroo disease, why didn't it spread to the kangaroos? Well, not one kangaroo died.
Yes. Yeah.
He said they were potoroos. Well, that's a kangaroo.
Yes.
Kangaroo.
Yes.
We never lost a kangaroo, but we lost every tiger. And it's spreading, what do you see, this distemper spreads like wildfire.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that that's what's helped to wipe them out in certain districts.
Do you think there is still any Alison at all? Do you think there is still any?
Oh, they discovered them up in the northwest coast.
Yeah.
They think they're taking the calves up there
Oh.
because they've been.
It's just got very cunning.
That chap came in on television when Judy Tierney wasn't. I don't know who that fellow was, an idiot he was. He interviewed this girl. This man, first of all, had taken a photograph and had made a cast beside the stream. And that definitely was a kangaroo, it was a tiger, because it had gone down on its... And when I was in Coles Bay once on holidays, I went up to the old tin mine up there had my little dog with me. And I saw where a flock of kangaroos had gone across on the wet clay, followed by, at the time, I thought was two dogs, a big dog and a little dog. And I followed the tracks, and I came to the side, and one of the kangaroos had turned quickly and gone like that, and this had dropped his hip down that, so I knew it was a tiger, and I kept quiet about it. And The whole trouble is, of course, is this wood chipping, because when the trees get to this high, they lay 1080.
Mm.
Well, up in this particular, wherever it was, they discovered the tigers. They've discovered them. But getting back to this man on the television, he interviewed some idiot of a woman who had been out looking for the tiger, and she'd had a tape recorder. And listen to this, and he, oh yes, oh did you? Oh, I'd hate to meet one, oh yes. What they taped it was a Tasmanian devil. And they attributed it to the tiger, and they went on with a lot of rubbish about, she's going to keep on looking, but oh my, wouldn't you know, all this was... I rang them up a few days later and ticked them off. I said, well, I would have told them more. And I said, all she taped was a Tasmanian devil.
Mm.
And I said, why did they give that impression over the year that the tiger was a vicious animal? It's not.
No.
And I ticked them off because I said, oh, we never said that, the girl said. I said, no, but I said, that was the inference. I said, and if you gave people as a tiger was a vicious animal, and I said, it's not. They're very shy.
Right.
Yes.
Well, obviously, because they don't
Yeah,
want to be...
they are, because the ones in the zoo took no notice of people. They took refuge in ignoring them.
Mm. Mm.
And what year did the last tiger die in the zoo?
Well,
Alison?
just a few months ago they found them up there.
No, in your
the zoo.
zoo.
When was the last what?
The tiger, when it died.
Oh, I don't know. I can't think of that now.
No. When did the zoo close?
Can't give you the date for that. It was before the war.
Oh, was it?
1935, I think.
Oh,
It was
right.
after my father died. And Bruce Lipscomb was superintendent of the zoo, and he was an absolute. I don't think his father and mother ever got married. He was a perfect pest. And he took the key from me, and I used to go down after the men had gone off and let the animals in, and he took the key from me, and the poor old Black Panther was left locked out. Men would go off at 5 o'clock and didn't care whether the animals were in their cage or not. And it was locked out in the cold and got pneumonia.
Oh, right. Mm. So it died.
He told me he was supposed to get pneumonia.
So how old was it when it died?
Didn't have a clue then how old it was when it came.
What type of animals were in the zoo, Alison?
Well, we didn't have a giraffe. And we didn't have orangutans. We had practically every other animal.
Oh, did you?
We had those spider web monkeys, you know, the spider monkeys.
Yes.
We had those. I think they must have been brought up by a woman, because I went in their cage one day and they both jumped in my arms and started, those days I had long hair, picking the hairpins out of my hair. And they were quite affectionate. But I think my father was frightened they might bite me and he wouldn't let me go in again.
So how would those sort of animals got here? How did they come? Who brought them?
Well, how father got his animals, we sort of ran on a shoestring. He would send out Tasmanian animals like tigers and devils and kangaroos to a man named Chapman in London, and he would barter them for these other animals.
Oh,
And
so
that's
you
where we-
exchanged animals.
This is where we had trouble with the city council. They thought running a zoo didn't have to have any knowledge at all, you know, it was very easy. And father got, I think he had a few kidney stones, occasionally used to have a bit of sickness. And this particular weekend he sent me in with the council money, and I gave it to Mr. Johnson, the deputy town clerk. And he said, oh, we've heard from Chapman. He said he's agreed to the change, so we've agreed to it, and we're getting the elephant. And when I told my father, he nearly fell out of bed. He said, "What's the case?" And asked him, did they stipulate the female? Oh no, they hadn't done that. Oh, you know, we got a rogue male elephant.
Dear.
Lots of people interfering, they don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
They thought there was nothing to it, you know, it was something like
Yeah.
buying a bolt of cloth or a pair of stockings.
Yes.
And that elephant, they say they don't like a different handler. She did handle the elephant and trained it. And after he died, it was sold in New Zealand, it killed the man over there.
Did it?
Really?
That's because it was a different mahout.
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
And he said that one of the men from the ship that had brought the elephant out came out the zoo to visit it. And he had his pocket full of peanuts, and the elephant emptied his pocket of peanuts and then just pushed him out of the cage.
He got all he could get.
Very human.
I believe that you've done some taxidermy in your life. How old were you when you started that, and what
About
brought
18.
that on?
About
Oh, right.
18 years.
Yes,
The father used to do it, he learned it when he was in Scotland. Only a few basic you know, principal things. But I sort of improved on it a bit with a few books and things. I did a roaring trade in deer's heads.
Yes, I reckon.
And I think I did 70 deer's heads one year. And of course now they've got a different method. They make a plaster cast and just pull the skin over it. So they get a better result than I could get.
Yes.
And, but often you'll see a specimen, but they can't get the expression in the face. They can't get the eyes right. How I used to do, I used to hold it up to a mirror and have it look back at me, and then I knew that
Yes.
I could alter it. And I did a couple of tigers when they died, but Father didn't encourage me to use poison on the hides, which was what he thought. And of course they've taken them out of exhibition because the moths got out of them.
Oh, well.
They got moth-eaten tigers.
Oh, that's a bit of a shame. That's,
You did work for the museum, did you, Alison?
Yes.
Oh. Is there any of your work still in
We had
there?
one funny thing that Judy Tenney wanted me to tell, but I'd forgotten to tell her that one. It was during the war years, and a friend of mine used to entertain the boys from the Allied Leave Club. And these two English boys, I think they were off a submarine, took them out rabbit shooting. And I skinned the two rabbits. And then I fastened duck wings on their backs. And they went back on the ship and showed the boys that they'd been out shooting flying rabbits.
You naughty girl.
That was the mascot on the warship or the submarine, whichever it was, but these two flying rabbits. I forgot to tell her that one.
Oh dear.
it must have been a very unusual, hobby or so-called for
Well,
for
it was in
certainly
those
for a
days,
woman.
yes.
Yes.
I think it kept me afloat, you see, as I wasn't considered good enough to be an art teacher. Didn't know how good it was at art. But I had to do maths. I don't know whether you measured everything by inches. But that's been all altered, they tell me now.
Did you get good money for your taxidermy?
Oh, yes, I think I know some man been over here taking interest in everything. He told me what I got for the tiger, and I nearly dropped dead and said, I think about £9. But that, of course, don't forget, was $18. And you work out what a man's wages were, and they were only $2.
Yes.
So
So it was quite
it was good money compared.
Yes. Yes. In comparison.
Doesn't sound much now, but
Because it was a big job, you know, and
how long would it take you to do a tiger?
it took me quite a while because I made a board shape of the tiger. And then I put ribs around it and stuffed it with newspaper, and then I plastered it over, and I put his pelvis on the back and his front legs on the front, you see, and all those sort of things.
So you actually used his bones.
I used part of its bones.
Yeah.
But the only thing what was wrong was that the tiger's got very deep-set brown eyes. And after the skin dried back, the eyes sort of came forward.
Oh dear.
I've been getting letters from some girl in Western Australia. They think they got Tasmanian Tiger there in some forest there. And she sent me all the information. We got it in the hospital, I haven't answered it yet. But I remember one part she said that the tiger's eyes, when the light shone on it, was blue. Well, I don't know, because we never shone it on our tiger's eyes at night.
And they were always brown, do you think?
They've got deep-set brown eyes. I'm not saying they're not there, because, I mean, it's very impenetrable bush where she is.
Yes, could well
There
be.
was one from up in Queensland way, another friend of mine was up there, and there was great excitement. They thought they had a tiger up there. And she sent me a photograph of it. And then later on she sent me a drawing of it, then she sent me a photograph of this woman had been feeding it. And it was a starving dingo.
Oh.
One of its foot had been taken off, so it couldn't hunt. And it used to be eating dropped fruit and stuff. And she'd been feeding it, so she got close enough, and it was ribs that gave it the appearance of stripes.
All right.
You started doing... When did your interest in photography begin?
Oh, I think in my very young days I had a little box brownie that I used to make so-called pictures on. And when we were moving, it was on the top drawer of one of my chest of drawers or something, and one of the moving men pinched it.
Oh, right.
So that's when I first started, and then I went out to the camera club for some reason. I can't remember what it was that I went out for.
Probably went with Angus.
Came out with Angus, but it was some fact. Oh, I know, it was Kingsley Barr came to me to get a deer's head done. And I had gone to Japan on a holiday. And while I was in Hong Kong, I bought myself a Contaflex Super. Because I wanted to buy a better camera than this little box camera.
Yes.
And when the man started, when he realised I didn't know much about photography, he said, "Oh, this is a camera for you." So he sold me this. And Kingsley Barr came out and he suggested I come out to you and show
To the
the
camera club. Yeah.
camera club the photographs I'd taken of. Well, of course, I had no idea of technique in those days. I reckon they were pretty awful. And so I liked it out there, I liked the company and everything, so I just decided I would join. So that's how I came to join.
Oh, good.
And you've travelled quite a lot taking photos, haven't you? You've been to Africa and
I've been
all
to
sorts of
Africa,
places.
and that's a tragedy because I took 20 rolls of 36 exposure slides. And there was one man that ran out of slides and I gave him one of my 36 exposures, so they left me with 19. And when I came back, I did as I'd always done. I posted them off to Kodak, 2 at a time every week. And out of 19 slides, I lost 10 and I got 9 back.
Oh, Alison, that is
And when
dreadful.
and that was the time other people were having trouble. And they asked me what I had on them, and I told them, and they said they would have a look. So they had an awful lot of films that didn't belong. I didn't know who owned them. And I suppose my films had gone or had been stolen because there were some very good slides on them. There were these African wild dogs, a mother and her young ones on the road. And, you know,
Unusual
ones that would be worth quite a lot of money. So I've never bought another Kodak film since then.
No.
Do you still take photographs?
I haven't taken many lately. My old Contaflex has seized up. And not travelling, I never have seemed to find any. I must take photographs of the Dobermans though, because she's very photogenic.
And how long have you had your Doberman?
She'll be 4 in May, I think. She's only still
Oh, she's only young.
young, yes, but the one of the reasons I think she's so nervous was that when she first came to see that my place property goes back onto Pavey Street at the back, and this idiot that caused me to get her used to lean over the back fence, I think, and throw things at because I'd find bits of timber and stones and stuff that he'd been thrown at Jessie, and of course she couldn't get that, made her nervous. And also the other dog, Rotten Dog, he's a Cairn Terrier, a bad-tempered little brute, and he gave her a bad time. Now the tables are turned and she gives him a bad time. And yet they had a dog fight out in the yard the other day, and he was biting her, because if he frightens her or bumps into the dog, because he's 18 now and blind, and
Oh, dear.
he'll turn on her, and he was putting up a fight. He was fighting her, and I thought Jess was going to kill him.
Have you always had a pet, Alison?
Always had a dog, yes. All my life. So that life wouldn't be
That's
normal if something on 4 legs around the place.
No, that's right.
no.
It certainly goes back a long way.
91, nearly 91 years.
Yes.
It's a long, interesting life. What other countries have you travelled to, Alison?
Well, I had what Krampus died a lot with my mother. Had very high blood pressure, and she had cataracts, and they couldn't operate, and so she'd gone blind. So I had to give up work and come home and look after her, because I came home one day, and the gas stove was underneath the power point, and the flex from the power point was going through one of the burners on the gas stove, and I knew that something would happen if I didn't come home, so I came home and looked after her. And my sister and I were going to go to Japan. That was in 1960. But her mother died. And my sister, who was Angus's mother, she died 18 months later.
Oh.
So I thought, well, all right, I'm going. So I went on my own.
Oh, you've been
And,
to Japan. You've been to Alaska too, haven't you?
Yes. That took me to Taipei and the Philippines, Hong Kong and Japan. And then the next trip, I had a bit to do with my property because everything after the war was peg rented, so Mother had to let the property fall into disrepair, and I got that in order. Then I went to Europe, I think that was the next trip, on a camping trip with a friend that was slightly dotty.
We won't show her this video.
I won't mention her name, but she was always having a nervous breakdown, so she didn't get her own way. But anyway, she wasn't a bad cook, but she was hopeless at driving a left-hand drive car. So we drove all over France, Germany, and Austria, and Italy, and then we didn't go to Spain. She said she didn't like the idea of bullfights, and I agreed with her. So then we went back and we were staying with Lady Benny, one of our ex-government's wives. She liked to see Tasmanians. So I left her there when I went up to Norway. That was very interesting. I love the Norwegian people. The children are very like ours, rowdy and self-assertive. And the various places up there were beautiful. So then the next thing is I came back and I went to Alaska. I did the east coast of the west coast, the east coast of America. Never felt happy in America. I don't know whether it was the pictures, but I never felt safe. Yet I'd walk about another foreign place and think nothing of it. And I went to America, and then we went to Canada, and I did the Canada wildlife parks. They were very nice.
All right.
They had one place we stayed at. It was holidays, I think, and they only employed in university people that could play an instrument, and they would serve us at the tables and everything, drove the buses, and then at a certain side of people they'd all go in there and play the piano or play whatever instruments and sing to us. It was
lovely.
That'd be interesting.
It was quite interesting.
Well, Alison, thanks very much for that interview. That was very interesting, and I think the people in the Camera Club will really appreciate it, and it'll be on record for anybody to enjoy in the future.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And we wish you well, and we're
Thank you.
sure you'll be